Good morning, and thanks for joining today's webinar. Today, we will be talking about Check Point's 2020 roadmap. My name is Michael Holden from Bytes. I'm pleased to be joined today by Jay Patel, the Technical Manager here at Bytes, who will be talking us through the bulk of today's presentation. The agenda for the webinar. Well, firstly, a short overview of Bytes. We will then move into the majority of the presentation from Jay, which will include Check Point Infinity, Sandblast, R80.40, and R80.40, which will be followed by a Q&A session, chaired by Jay and Zhao Lei Chen, a security engineer from Check Point. But first, some housekeeping. Attendee lines will be on mute throughout the session. There will be a Q&A at the end, so please post any questions in the questions window, and I will field them during this Q&A. This is a purely strategic discussion. Any commercials can be discussed with your Bytes account manager after the session, and everyone will receive the recording after the session. And lastly, we have a feedback survey at the end of this presentation and would appreciate it if you could take 2 minutes to complete it, as we use this to make sure that our webinars are still hitting the mark. So, who are Bytes? We enable cost-effective and cost-efficient technology sourcing, adoption, security, and management of software, hardware, and cloud software services. Bytes have a wide range of expertise, including licensing and SAM, data management, and security. On the security side of the side, we have a wide range of technology partners with the highest level of accreditations, with the majority of our vendors. We offer a variety of technical services, hold multiple accreditations, and boast award-winning delivery, which we are extremely proud of, and includes accolades such as being the first Check Point Infinity partner worldwide and Check Point's EMEA Strategic Partner of the Year. That's enough about us. Let's talk about Check Point's roadmap. Jay Patel heads up the technical services and support here at Bytes with over 12 years of experience at Bytes. Today's discussion will cover an overview of Check Point's new releases for the coming year and what they mean for you. So, over to you, Jay.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, well, Michael's done the introduction for myself, so I will skip that. So, the plan is in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to take you through what's new with Check Point, specifically what's come out of CPX 360 this year, which was around Feb. I would like to state at the onset that some of the stuff I'm about to mention is still within the EA stage, or you might see the beta sign somewhere. They're basically the same. So it is subject to change. Now, before I begin introducing the new products and what's new, I would like to set the scene with the next couple of slides, because I think it's important to understand Check Point's messaging and why behind these new products. So the theme for this year's CPX was secure your everything, and it was a narrative that they used to introduce new products to the portfolio, because it now allows them to extend the security beyond the traditional network, endpoint, cloud, and mobile. And that's what they're looking to achieve. It's basically help organizations keep up with the threats that are now coming in through all of these new vectors. And to understand how these attacks have evolved, Check Point have been using this graph, which I'm not sure if you guys have seen this before. Apologies if you have, but for those who haven't, I'm just going to quickly go through these. So Check Point came out with this timeline, like I said, a couple of years ago, of how attacks have evolved over the years and how the cybersecurity industry has responded to these attacks. So take, for example, 90s, we had viruses that basically spawned the AV industry. Then with internet connectivity on the rise, we saw the birth of the firewall industry. And then, we saw the cyber criminals who started designing attacks that were targeted specifically to applications to gain access and steal information. And this then drove the creation of the IPS products. And then obviously we started seeing more sophisticated payloads, which gave, rise to the sandboxing technology. Where we are at the moment, according to Check Point, is Gen 5, where we are seeing truly organized crime, state-sponsored attacks, espionage, and they're using very sophisticated tools which can be launched through multiple vectors, network, cloud, mobile devices, and all of these devices, they have access to your business network. And because the attacks are multi-vector, the only way you can protect against these is to move towards a consolidated security architecture, i.e. Check Point's Infinity architecture backed by their threat cloud, right? That's the messaging here. Now, what we are starting to see, and this is where the secure your everything comes in, is effectively the 6th generation of attacks, where Check Point are starting to see the IoT devices within the business, which have become a part of the core network, being exploited. And because those devices are very much part of the network, effectively your attack surface has increased through those devices. We then have workloads, which are not on traditional computing devices, but rather just functions or code, which again is a challenge to protect, because how do you protect something that isn't running on a VM, specifically with traditional security measures? So this is the key area that Check Point are focusing on at the moment, which is Gen 6. And the technology that they have termed to protect against these new tech is called nanosecurity. And I'll go into this into a little bit more detail. That line, by the way, there, or that pointer, is what, according to Check Point, they see where most organizations are, despite the fact that there's technology available to protect you from, the Gen 5 attacks. Okay, so this is Check Point today. These are the assets that they can secure as of today. Different networks, endpoints, mobile devices, various cloud platforms, both public and private, and of course, SaaS applications. This year, Check Point are extending their protection to cover both IoT devices and cloud workloads, like your web services, your Lambda functions, serverless functions. And I have to say this because this then allows you to truly secure your everything, right? Going back to the message. So now that we've covered the messaging from Check Point for this coming year, let's have a look at the new and upcoming products. First and foremost, this is quite important, is Infinity Portal. Those of you who are probably already using CloudGuard SaaS will be familiar with this portal. This is Check Point's cloud-native single security platform for all of their SaaS offerings, both that are GA and EA, or you'll see the beta side. And these change and grow every other month. Most of existing Check Point customers, when they think about Check Point, it's usually the stuff that comes to mind is on-premise appliances, firewalls, endpoint servers. However, if you look at this, and to be honest, actually, I might quickly go off script and show you our Infinity Portal here. If you actually look at most of the stuff Check Point has released in the last couple of years, barring the Maestro appliances, it's all been in the cloud. And also what they've started to do is they've started to provide traditional products as a service from the portal. So for example, you can see I have my management as a service available. I have my endpoint servers now available as a service in the cloud. And even Dome 9 isn't showing up here, but Dome 9 again is being in the process of being migrated to this portal. So for any of you who are already using Dome 9, you would have seen that the front-end design is now in line with what the Infinity Portal looks like. Another key point I'd like to mention is any of you are interested in trying any of these services, simply create yourself an account by going to portal.checkpoint.com. Once you log in, you will be able to see all of these icons, and you can click on an icon and you can say, try. And when you say you want to try something, it then sends off a request to Check Point, and someone at the back end needs to approve that. But once they approve it, it's effectively like an eval license, and you can try the product for a limited period of time. Moving on, Check Point CloudGuard family. Now, CloudGuard IaaS, hopefully everyone's aware of this. This is your traditional Check Point security appliance, along with your usual threat prevention blades that can be deployed in public or private clouds and managed by your management server. Dome 9 again isn't new. This is Check Point's cloud security posture management platform. Completely API driven, hooks into your Azure, AWS, GCP infrastructure, and now also Kubernetes. And what it does is effectively allows you to visualize your cloud assets, assess the security posture, and then alert and remediate any cloud misconfigurations or threats. So that's Dome 9. Logic is slightly newer. I think it got released, I would like to say, less than 6 months ago. It's quite an interesting thing. It's, as you can see, it's part of Dome 9, but it's an additional feature. So what it is if you've ever seen flow logs from AWS, you will know that all it seems is a string of characters and IP addresses which don't make much sense. What Logic does is it takes those flow logs and it enriches them, allowing you to understand the activity of your assets and ultimately understand what's happening in your cloud environment. So say, for example, if there is a breach or you suspect a breach. So say, for example, I can see, some of my assets here communicating to something that looks malicious. I can click on it and I can investigate it further by zooming in on that suspected asset and understand the full context from both a configuration and traffic activity perspective. Also, if you're wondering where it's getting the information of that IP address being malicious, that's obviously using Check Point's own threat cloud intelligence, which enriches the logs even further with the information like, is it communicating to a malicious IP address? You can also use CloudBots to remediate any alerts flagged by Logic. Again, CloudBots, people who are familiar with Dome 9, it's the same open source utility you can use to remediate. Other interesting use cases for Logic is it can even detect privilege escalation or credential compromise within your cloud environment, because again, it's seeing all of the flow logs. It can detect unusual or abnormal use of your cloud resources, network activity, logins, etc. It is, like I said, it's an additional feature, so it's an additional license based on volume of logs that you need retained for either a month or a year. At the moment, Logic is available for AWS, so it's GA. Azure is still in EA stage, but if you're interested, by all means, do get in touch with ourselves, and we'll get the right people involved from Check Point. Moving on, CloudGuard WAAP. This is new. This came out, I think this was announced at CPX this year. So WAAP, or Web Application and API Protection, is effectively an evolution of WAF. So the challenge with traditional WAF is that they're based on rule tables and they have too many false positives. The larger a rule table, smaller the number of false positives. But then the rule table is hardest to manage. Also, the traditional rule tables they can't quite adapt to new apps or changes to existing apps. There's a degree of manual configuration required. So what CloudGuard WAAP does, on the other hand, is it uses machine learning algorithms. So when a web request comes in, it goes through the analysis of the initial payload, where the client-side behavior is examined, and it collects telemetry and statistics. And if the engine determines that the request is suspicious, it then passes it to the AI-based scoring engine. which then uses things like user reputation scoring, application awareness scoring, etc., to understand if the risk is high or low. It also protects against your usual OWASP top 10 and advanced attacks. It provides API security by doing, I think it's called schema validation. And finally, it does bot protection. And the way it does this is it injects scripts into your web pages, and it collects data about input patterns. So that's how it understands whether it's a human interacting your web page or it's a bot. Currently, the supported workload type is Nginx, the reverse proxy. This is, like I said, this whole program is in EA. There's plenty more that are on the roadmap. So Node.js web server, there's API gateways, Linux VMs, Kubernetes ingress, pod. So there's a lot more on the roadmap. So again, this is EA. If you are interested, please do get in touch with ourselves. Next up is CloudGuard Workload. This is the latest addition to Dome9 platform. Again, this is in EA, but hopefully not for long. This is Check Point's recent acquisition of Protego, which basically provides security for serverless applications. And the reason behind this acquisition, I suppose, is this rapid adoption of serverless computing like AWS Lambda, which is effectively, as I mentioned this earlier on, it's forcing us to shift the focus from protecting machines and networks to protecting function and code, right? And the way it works is you hook it up against your AWS account in the same way as Dome9, using an API, and it instantly starts scanning your account and starts giving you granular visibility into all of your serverless applications and giving you visibility of potential risks and misconfigurations. And the way it achieves this is by analyzing the function code and not just detecting, but also suggesting remediations, which I think is quite cool, about security risks like over permissive IAM rules, if there's any vulnerable dependencies, and if there's any hard-coded credentials within your functional code. The other interesting thing it does is it also creates a behavioral profile for the function. So it can detect and stop anything out of the ordinary, so any anomalous function behaviors, and hence you can say it provides zero-day protection. Again, like WAAP, it also protects against OWASP top 10 attacks. Okay. Like I said, this is currently supported for AWS. This is Azure is planned for later this year. So I think the timelines are Q4. Moving on, new products and some existing ones for connectivity or secure connectivity for your branch offices to the cloud. So traditionally, branch office security is provided by an on-premise branch security gateway, or by backhauling the connections through your data center. However, with more and more applications moving to the cloud, backhauling traffic through the data center introduces latency, impacts performance, all of that. But now, obviously, there's a market for that, which we all know as SD-WAN solutions, which help deal with the connectivity and the routing decisions. And it helps with latency and making sure that the user experience isn't impacted. It, however, doesn't deal with ensuring that your branch offices receive the same Gen 5 protection that your HQ or data centers are. So Check Point currently offer two ways to secure your branch offices. First is CloudGuard Connect, which basically allows you to leverage your existing routers and SD-WAN solutions to basically provide a clean and secure connectivity to the cloud. In fact, it will work with any router that can do IPsec or GRE nodes, and it takes less than 5 minutes to set up. If I, again, quickly show you here. I mean, this is my test. I haven't got any traffic going through this, but I can show you how quick it is. Give it a name. You mention what kind of device you have at the branch. And if you click, once it's selected, you have the ability to look at the instructions for that specific device on what config changes you need to do on the device. Give it an IP address, set a shared secret, you provide your internal subnet. Once you have this and you've configured your end the branch office, it literally takes less than 5 minutes to set up. Traffic then starts routing through the CloudGuard Protect. Latency is under 50 milliseconds, and it starts giving you the same protection that you have on your data center firewalls. Currently, the management is through is through the Cloud UI within the Infinity platform, where we just saw. Unified management with Smart Console is on the roadmap. They have strong partnerships in terms of SD-WAN with VMware SD-WAN Cloud Gateway and Silverpeak. Silverpeak specifically, literally, you can just drag and drop the config on Silverpeak. So if you have Silverpeak appliance at these branch offices, they will know that if they need to go back to the HQ, it sends traffic through a different link. If it needs to, send traffic out to the internet or consume any of the SaaS applications, it sends the traffic to CloudGuard Connect through the tunnel that Silverpeak will have set up with CloudGuard Connect. So that's CloudGuard Connect. CloudGuard Edge, on the other hand, is an on-premise VNF or virtual network function. So if you want to secure your branch office locally without having to route all traffic to the cloud, this is Check Point's alternative offering. It's a lightweight VM. I think it's like 1 virtual core and 1 gig RAM, which you can put inside an SD-WAN edge device like, for example, VeloCloud. Whilst CloudGuard Connect, the one I talked about earlier, that provides outbound security. CloudGuard Edge provides both outbound and inbound security. And the way it works is, you log on to your SD-WAN platform, so for example, VeloCloud, and you point it to the Check Point Edge image. And then using the SD-WAN orchestrator, the web UI, you can automatically provision the CloudGuard Edge to all of your branches. You don't need to install the VNF individually on any of the SD-WAN appliances. Literally just push it, and it deploys it on those appliances, and you simply enable it. And when you enable it, all of your inbound and outbound traffic is scanned basically by that VM. The default insertion mode is bridge mode, which means you can turn it on and off without any network impact. The edge config is also pushed through the orchestrator, so once it's up and running, it just reaches out to wherever your checkpoint management server is to fetch the checkpoint policy. Okay, so these are the two new branch office connectivity security solutions. Next up is Sandblast Web. Now, basically, what this is a nano agent that's deployed inside your web browser, so your Chrome, IE, Firefox, and basically provides protection from web-based threats like zero-day malware, phishing, and because it's sitting inside the browser, it sees all the traffic in clear. So you don't have to worry about SSL inspection or whether the user is browsing the internet from behind your corporate firewall or is he using a free dodgy Wi-Fi somewhere. In terms of protection, it provides real-time phishing by scanning every single form before you input any of the fields. It also provides corporate credential reuse protection. So basically what it does is it's kind of aware of the hash of your user's password. So if they try and log in to, say, for example, their Hotmail account or their Yahoo account with the corporate credential, basically reusing the credential, it will kind of alert them and also create a log entry. So you get notified, so you can do some user training, which I think is quite cool. It performs threat emulation and sandboxing for downloaded files, and for any documentation, for any documents that you download, it does threat extraction. So, any Office documents, PDFs. They're also planning for URL filtering to be added to this, which I believe is on the roadmap for Q2 this year. So that's Sandblast Web. Moving on to IoT security. So this is for me the second piece of the secure your everything. We talked about workloads, CloudGuard WAAP and CloudGuard workload, which helps securing the serverless functions. This now is the other piece, which is the IoT piece. Now, we all know IoT devices are inherently vulnerable due to many, many reasons. Lack of patching, weak credentials, misconfiguration, the list goes on. Now, when those same vulnerable devices are connected to our networks, they basically extend the attack surface to our networks. So to help organizations protect against this new attack vector, Check Point have 3 offerings. First, the IoT firmware risk analysis. This, by the way, is a free assessment service. So what you can do is you can upload the firmware of any of your IoT devices that you currently use within the organization to Check Point, and they will generate a firmware risk assessment. So, for example, whether it has any known vulnerabilities, whether it's using weak credentials, if it's tried to communicate to any URLs or domains that are malicious and suspicious. And in order to use the service, you don't even need to be a Check Point customer. In fact, I have a sample report here. So this is what the report looks like of your IoT firmware. So like I said, it will give you a breakdown of the different components, CVEs, if it's found any credentials, and any of the domains and or IP addresses that it's tried to communicate, and whether if any of those are malicious. So it's quite neat. So that's the first one. Next up is IoT network protection. Now, obviously, this is now available with R80.40. I'll talk about this further down when I talk about R80.40. And last is IoT Nano Agent. This is interesting. So if you are a vendor who's creating IoT devices, Check Point gives you the ability to install an agent on your IoT device, which basically then allows you to take your IoT product to the market with, tagline or whatever you call it, secured with Check Point inside. So Check Point, by the way, are currently focusing on 3 specific verticals when it comes to IoT: smart office or smart buildings, medical devices like your, MRI machines, infusion pumps, and your industrial OT devices. So that's IoT security. What's new with that? The other thing that's new, which I briefly showed you when I was talking about the Infinity platform, is Check Point Management as a Service. Now, currently, as it stands, you need to buy Security Management Server as an appliance, or run it on an open server, or a VM. It is now being offered as management as a service, and that includes policy management, log analysis, reporting, basically the same stuff that you used to on the appliance. And you can manage both your on-premise and CloudGuard IaaS gateways with this same management server. And because it's being offered as a service, you don't need to worry about the maintenance of your management solution. Check Point does that for you. So I have a screenshot here of our test environment. Once you have it up and running, you can either manage it by downloading the console through here, or you can manage it through a web smart console as well. Bear in mind, when they say web smart console, it's effectively your full-fledged R80.40 console, but running in a web console. So I'll show you. This is what it looks like. So it's still browser, but it's running through an AWS app stream in the background. Again, neat. You don't need to install a smart console. You can effectively manage this from any machine that's got a browser of your management server. So this is GA. So again, FYI, if this is something that interests you, or if you have any new business requirements, then again, do please get in touch. Next up is an interesting project from Check Point at the moment. It is in EA or beta. They keep changing these terms every now and then, but basically it's in early availability. They are looking for customers, and what it is so currently, if you want to deploy a Check Point CloudGuard IaaS firewall in Azure, you would need to deploy and configure a virtual firewall, say a VMSS, through your Azure portal. You would either hook the VMSS firewall to your on-premise manager, or deploy a new security management server, for example. You would need to configure your Azure public load balancer with the front-end IP of the applications, create all of the load balancing rules, configure the objects and all of the relevant security rules within your policy, your firewall policy, and then finally detach the existing public IP addresses from your existing load balancer, then move them across to the new load balancer, right? That's what you have to do. What they're coming up with is Shift, which is, it will basically do all of that for you. And the way it achieves this is you hook up the Shift platform with your Azure account, and it will go away and fetch all of your assets. And then you can select an asset, so whether it's a VM or an internal load balancer, and you can say protect, answer a few simple questions, wait for the protections to be applied, including IPS. And like I said, it will do all of that for you. So spinning up a new firewall, creating the objects within a management server, all of that. In the back end, it's using management as a service. It is in EA phase at the moment, and they are aiming for the integration with Azure by the end of H1, and it's going to provide inbound protection initially for all of the applications. Long-term plans are to make sure that they provide both inbound and outbound and east-west for Azure, and also then expand it to AWS and GCP. And also, sorry, one last thing, is full management of your gateways as part of Shift. So it's not just because it's using management as a service, but it's also doing management of your gateways as part of the service. It is beta, or EA, you want to call it, and they are looking for people who are interested. So get in touch if you are. So Check Point have released 5 new appliances. There's more than 5, I appreciate, but it's 5 new appliances post CPX. The 3600 or 3600 and 3600T, 6200s, 6669, and the 16,000 Turbo Hyperscale. The 3600 for the branch appliances branch offices replaces your 3100s and 3200s, and it provides up to 1.5 gig throughput. And when I say up to, there'll be a couple of months. Anywhere where I say, or where you read, it's up to, there's kind of a base model, and there's the top end model, which provides you that throughput. 6200 for small enterprises, this replaces your 51s to 54s. 66 and the 69s, which replace the 56s and 59s. What they are doing at the moment is they're not making the 3000s or the 5000 series appliances end of life. Both series will coexist in parallel. Okay. The new appliances, all of them are 100% SSD, or all of the models. You have the option on the enterprise models to have 10 gig connectivity on all of the enterprise models. You have the option. You also have the option to have a second power supply option across all models, including the branch office 3600. And also lights out management is an option for all of the enterprise models and upwards. So that's your new appliances. And finally, moving on to R80.40. Now, there's plenty of new features and even more enhancements for me to cover within this 30 or 40 minutes with everything on. So I'm going to be focusing on the top, what I believe are the top 5 or 6 new features. First of which is Smart Tasks. So Smart Tasks is about, it's all about automating tasks. So the way it works is, this, by the way, is within your management settings. You will see smart tasks as an option. You configure a specific action, and then you define the trigger that will activate with the action. Okay. So for example, here I'm saying run a script before the publish before a user publishes, and this is the script I want you to run. And this script here I'm doing is I'm running that script to run a validation check to make sure that before publishing, the word, the letter CR are in the prefix. Now, if anyone tries to publish, and if it doesn't have that specific format, publish will fail, right? The actions available, by the way, are before publish, after publish, and install policy. Now, obviously, this is just one example. You can do much, much more with this. Obviously, the other thing as well is you do need to know a bit of scripting. That there is a script that I think I managed to get off one of the admin guides available with 8040. But there's plenty of other scripts available readily on GitHub as well, if for those who are familiar with it. So by all means, go and have a look, have a tinker. So like I said, the options are plenty. It's just, what you want to do with this. Next up, this is my personal favorite, is the fact that with R80.40, now HTTPS inspection policy is an integrated policy within Smart Console. So what this means is, whereas pre-8040, you had the same SSL or HTTPS inspection policy on all of your gateways that were doing HTTPS inspection, you can now have different HTTPS inspection layers in different policy packages. And because it's a policy package, because it's a layer, you can even share that specific layer across different policy packages, which I think is quite neat. As you can see, I'm talking about inspection policy, but also updatable objects. Now, updatable objects aren't new. They came out in 8020, but the really cool feature is now you can use them within HTTPS inspection policy, which you couldn't pre-R8040. And what that does is it makes it much, much, much easier to bypass traffic for inspection for things like Office 365, where the IP addresses are changing almost daily, and it's difficult to keep up with it. Another cool feature is updatable objects specifically for HTTPS inspection is this new HTTPS services bypass. And what this object does is it's dynamically updated with websites and applications that Check Point have found to break when accessed through a device that's performing HTTPS inspection. So take any website or application that uses certificate pinning or mutual authentication will break if you are doing HTTPS inspection. You have to bypass that traffic. And pre-R8040, you had to do that using custom URL categories. You had to put all of the URLs in, and then you had to bypass that category. So obviously, as and when the application changed the URL or there were new IP addresses added to that application, you had to then go and add them again, otherwise things will break. Whereas now, when you use this object, Check Point will bypass those URLs from inspection. But more importantly, it will update these objects automatically on the gateway as and when Check Point finds that they've been updated. So they are always current. I mean, don't get me wrong, this isn't the most comprehensive list, but this is a really good start for stuff that you want to bypass without having to go and trawl through, what URLs and what IP addresses you need to bypass. Next up, again, a really interesting feature is we now have the ability to specify encryption domain per VPN community. So as you can imagine, this now allows us to be quite granular and allow more interoperability with VPNs. So let's assume, you're working with a third-party vendor and you don't want to allow access to a resource inside the VPN community, sorry, not don't want to, you want to allow access to a resource inside the community, but you don't want to expose all of your networks that you define within your VPN community or within your encryption domain. So you can now easily override the VPN domain to say, right, well, hang on, not according to the gateway, but that specific network. And you can do this for every single VPN community. So every single VPN community can have a different encryption domain. So obviously improved privacy, more granularity. And if you are using root-based VPN, then the definitions become much more simplified, especially when you're working with an empty VPN encryption domain. Next is revert to previous revisions. Now, I'm not sure most of you will remember, you had the ability to revert the database pre-R80, right? This is now back with 8040. So this now effectively gives you two options to revert. You can either revert the gateway policy by installing the specific version to the gateway while keeping most of the up-to-date changes in the management intact. That obviously came with 8010. But now you can also revert the entire changes that you've made on the management server using this reverse revision feature. So this is still within revisions, and now you have the ability to revert to this specific revision. Bear in mind, revisions are automatically created with each publish operation. So if you see here, for example, so on the 13th of March, I made two changes here, one change here, but they were within a minute's gap. So every time I hit publish, it's creating a revision, which isn't bad, but just be aware that, you want to, it does this for every single change. So you can either be granular or you can stack all of the changes if you just want a less amount of revisions. Lastly, I would like to talk about the IoT policy enforcement. So with 8040, you now have the ability to create network protection policies to secure your IoT devices. So in order to do that, you need to have one of these IoT discovery services, which is basically a third-party source. And what this does is it scans your network for your IoT devices. It gathers all of the information, and then it provides all of those attributes of every single IoT device to your management server. And you can then start using those devices and their attributes within the IoT policy. Effectively, what you see here is that's the IoT discovery service, which is the third-party service. And this here is your IoT controller, which is basically your management server. And that there is your 8040 gateway with the IoT security policy. And this is effectively what it looks like, right? You have your assets on the left, on the right, as you can see. This is everything that's been imported from the discovery service, and you can then start using them within your access control policy. If anyone who's ever used the CloudGuard controller for Azure or AWS will realize that these icons are quite similar. So quite similar logic in terms of it hooks into the discovery controller, service, and it pulls all of the objects, allowing you to use the objects. So when the object's IP changes dynamically, the discovery controller will update the management server. You don't have to make any changes to the policy. And the fact that Check Point has IPS protections for all of the IoT devices, SCADA, all of that, it's not just access control. You're also applying IPS policies for you as well. Okay. And that is that. So there you have it. That's all of the products now updated in the popular Check Point Infinity architecture slide. For those of you familiar, as you can see, they've now introduced all of the new ones. You've got Edge, Connect, Workload. I can see WAAP isn't there, but I'll probably flag that to Check Point to make sure that it's back up there. You now have the Internet of Things. So that's Check Point at the moment. That's everything that's been new in the last, 2 to 3 months. And yeah, if you need any further information, you know where we are. I'd also like to quickly draw your attention to some of our services that you may or may not be aware of. So obviously, offer both professional services and direct to third line level engineer support, assist with, planning, testing, deploying, training when it comes to migrating to R80 or, any other version that you want to go to. We also offer cloud security audits using Dome 9 and Office 365 Security Health Check as well for your estates. There's security assessments, there's firewall health checks, and last but not least, we also have the Bytes incident response team available, or service available, which again is powered by Check Point. The details for all of these, if any of you are interested, are in the handout section available within your menu on site for GoToWebinar. And that's it from me. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully you found that useful, and I'll open the session up for any Q&As.
Hi guys, so thanks Jay for that. It was very informative. I have received 1 or 2 questions that I've passed on to Xiaolei. So while she answers that, if anybody else has any question, please post it into the questions box now, and then I will present them at the end of once Xiaolei has gone through her few questions that she's got.
Yeah, okay. Hi everyone, this is Xiaolei speaking from Check Point. So there's a few questions that I got. The first one is regarding, what are available regions at the moment for management as a service. So at the moment, you can spin up our management as a service in Ireland region as well as in US region. So this is applying to have other region in a near future. So if you do have, any specific region that you are interested, please let us know. There's another question around Maestro. So basically the question is around, when all appliances will be Maestro ready. So at the moment, Check Point R&D is prioritizing on those appliances which are the most popular ones. So if you do have an appliance which is not Maestro ready, we are more than happy to open a RFE request. And generally, it would take about 2 weeks to 1 month to certify an appliance to be Maestro. It's not related to any technical issues. It's really a matter of time. So hence the reason we haven't certified all the appliances yet. The other question, it's around if there's any plan with Kubernetes. So at the moment on Dome 9, we are supporting AWS, Azure, and the Google Cloud Platform as part of the posture management, the part which we can assess your cloud environment for any specific industry framework or best practices. As part of that functionality on Dome 9, today we already support Kubernetes. So if you do have an environment deployed in AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, and they're using this native Kubernetes tool within this public cloud environment, you can actually access your Kubernetes environment already. It is the same for your on-prem environment. Kubernetes is also supported as part of the posture management on Dome 9.
Thanks, Xiaolei. So I've received 1 more question in the meantime.
Yeah.
So we've got somebody asking for more detail about providing specific granular application access instead of remote access VPN.
Sorry, would you mind repeat that question again?
So they're looking for more detail about providing specific granular application access instead of remote access VPN.
Oh, yes. So basically via the browser access. So this is something already possible with Check Point. I believe you are already Check Point customer, or so in that case, just from yesterday, we actually released a lab access, which you can test, client base or client-less base with our remote access solution. So we can take this offline, and I will send Byte, the lab access, and then you can play around with that.
That's great, thanks. So just to let everybody know, I have been made aware by one of our attendees that the handouts was not working for him. So what I will be doing is, with a follow-up email, I will send out all of the handouts to everybody. Just to say thank you to everybody for attending. Thank you to Jay and Jale for being here. I know it takes time out of their day, and not always easy to do that. And that's why we also appreciate you guys being here. And I hope that everybody has a good day. Again, thank you very much for being here. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.